Well, happy holidays, everyone. I hope this deep dive finds you well, especially as we wrap up the year. We're here to delve into this week's PortalFuse Weekly Report, the one ending December 24th.
Yeah, always a good way to stay in the loop, even while most of the world is, taking a break for the holidays.
Definitely. And, PortalFuse always does a fantastic job of summarizing those MSRC posts and all the sports documentation.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right in. The first thing I noticed is there weren't that many new CVEs this week, especially for Chromium.
Yeah, thankfully. A nice little holiday gift, More time for those holiday cookies.
Exactly. Only 4 to discuss for Chromium, which is always good news.
Definitely. Always good news. Gives us more time to focus on each of these vulnerabilities in detail.
So let's start with CVE 2024-12695, an out-of-bounds write vulnerability in the V8 JavaScript engine. I know our listeners are pretty familiar with these types of vulnerabilities, but can you kind of go into what makes this one stand out?
Sure. So this one is noteworthy because it has been classified as critical. What that means is this vulnerability could potentially allow for arbitrary code execution, basically giving attackers the ability to run malicious code on a system just from visiting a website.
Oof, that's not good.
Yeah.
Especially with how much we use our web browsers for everything.
Right.
Yeah, it's always a good reminder to keep your systems updated.
Absolutely.
In this case, the update is to Microsoft Edge version 131.2903.112. It was released on December 19th. And all the details are in that Microsoft Support KB article release note, 19/12/2024.
Yep. Definitely a good idea to get that update ASAP.
For sure. Now, moving on to CVE 2024-12694. This one is a use after free vulnerability, this time in compositing. And these can be pretty tricky, right?
Yeah, they definitely can. With use after free, you're essentially having a program try to access memory that's already been freed up, and that opens the door for attackers to manipulate data or possibly execute malicious code.
Right. So what kind of impact are we talking about here?
Well, you could be looking at unauthorized access, data manipulation, even denial of service attacks.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing good.
Not good.
Same solution, though, right? Update to Microsoft Edge version 131.0.290.112.
That's right. That's right. And the KB article we talked about earlier covers this one, too.
Perfect. The next two CVEs we're going to talk about are CVE 2024-12693 and CVE 2024-12693, and both of these also affect the V8 engine. CVE 2024-12693 is another out-of-bounds memory access issue. We seem to see these all the time.
It does seem that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you think these are becoming more common, or are we just better at finding them now?
It's probably a bit of both. I mean, the software we use these days, like the V8 engine, it's so complex that it creates a lot of opportunities for attackers. And as developers fix one issue, attackers are already trying to find ways to exploit something similar.
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle, isn't it?
It really is.
Okay, so patching is still super critical. And for both of these CVEs, the solution is the same. Update to Microsoft Edge version 131.0.290.3.112.
Correct. All the information is in that release note KB article.
Got it. Now, before we move on, I do want to acknowledge that it is almost Christmas.
It is.
And I'm sure a lot of our listeners are busy with, holiday stuff on top of their regular work.
It's definitely a busy time of year, but security doesn't take a holiday.
Exactly.
So even though it's the season of giving and all that, you don't want to give attackers any gifts,
Absolutely not. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about this known issue that's been around for a while now. It's affecting those who use Windows 11 23H2 and have a dual boot setup with Linux. Apparently, some SBoot settings can cause issues with booting into Linux.
Yeah, this one stems from the August 2024 security update, KB 5041585. It's been hanging around for a while now.
Yeah. The report says it was first reported back in August, last updated September 20th. No fix yet, though.
Not yet, no. It's tough to say what's causing the delay without more info from Microsoft. These issues can be complicated to fix, especially when you've got different operating systems involved.
Yeah, hopefully we'll figure it out soon. All right, on to some good news. Microsoft Edge released version 130.0.2849.123 for the stable channel on December 19th. Mostly bug fixes and performance improvements.
Always a good thing.
Yeah. They specifically mentioned fixes for the extended stable channel, which is great for organizations that need more control over their updates.
Right. That extended stable channel gives them a balance between staying up to date and making sure things are stable. Those bug fixes and performance improvements will definitely help.
Okay, let's dive into something a little different now. There's a Microsoft support article this week that caught my eye. It's about resolving blue screen errors in Windows 10 and 11.
Ah, the blue screen of death.
Yeah, exactly. It might seem like a general topic, but I think it's pretty relevant for system admins, especially from a security perspective.
For sure. Blue screens can be a real pain, but sometimes they're pointing to a bigger security problem.
Right, right. So the article starts with some basic troubleshooting steps, like removing recently installed hardware, booting into safe mode, and checking the device manager for driver issues.
Yeah, good starting points. Those steps can often clear up those simple issues.
Right, but the article goes beyond that, right?
It does, it does.
It gets into some more advanced techniques like analyzing event viewer logs, running the Windows memory diagnostics tool.
Yeah, the event viewer is a great resource. It logs all sorts of system events, errors, warnings, informational messages. You can use it to really pinpoint the root cause of a blue screen, especially if it keeps happening.
And that Windows memory diagnostics tool, that's a lifesaver when you think you've got memory issues.
Absolutely. Faulty RAM can cause all kinds of problems.
Definitely.
So using those tools can really make a difference.
The article also talks about memory dump analysis.
Oh, yeah, that's getting into the nitty-gritty.
Right. It's like doing a forensic investigation of the system right when it crashed.
Exactly. You can look at the memory, figure out which drivers and processes were running, even pinpoint the exact instruction that caused the whole thing to go down.
It's pretty impressive what you can learn from that.
Definitely. The article actually links to another guide on memory dump analysis if you want to learn more about it.
Wow, that's a great resource.
It is.
So there you have it. From those Chromium vulnerabilities to blue screen troubleshooting, this week's PortalFuse Weekly Report had a lot of great information for system admins. But our deep dive isn't over yet.
Nope, we've got more to cover.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. Glad to have you with us as we dig deeper into this week's PortalFuse report. It's easy to get caught up in all the holiday stuff this time of year, but as we've seen, security is always important.
For sure. The holidays are definitely no time to let our guard down. And we were talking before the break about some interesting developments with Microsoft Edge.
Right. The release of version 130.0.2849.123 for the stable channel back on December 19th.
Yeah, that one. Mostly bug fixes and performance improvements, right?
That's right. And they specifically called out some fixes for the extended stable channel, which a lot of organizations use because they need more control over those updates.
Yeah. The extended stable channel gives them a way to stay up to date without, potentially destabilizing anything mission critical.
Exactly. And those bug fixes and performance improvements, they might seem small, but they can actually address vulnerabilities and performance bottlenecks that could impact security or, just the user experience.
Right, yeah. Speaking of user experience, there's one more item from the report I want to dig into a bit more. Relates to those blue screen errors.
Ah, yeah. We touched on this earlier.
Yeah, we did. But I think it's worth spending a little more time on them, especially for all the system admins out there.
I agree. I mean, they might seem like a general Windows problem, but blue screens can often be a sign of something that needs a sysadmin's attention.
Exactly. So the report links to this Microsoft support article that gives a pretty comprehensive guide to troubleshooting blue screen errors in Windows 10 and 11. Starts with some basic stuff.
Right. Things like checking your hardware, booting into safe mode, making sure all your drivers are up to date.
Yeah. Those are good first steps to rule out any simple problems.
Definitely. But the article doesn't stop there, does it?
Nope, it goes way deeper. It talks about analyzing event viewer logs, running the Windows memory diagnostics tool.
Yeah, the event viewer is a goldmine for this kind of thing. It logs everything, all the errors, warnings, even informational messages. Yeah. You can use those logs to track down the root cause of a blue screen, especially if it's one that keeps coming back.
And the Windows memory diagnostics tool, that's super useful for checking your RAM, right?
Absolutely. Faulty RAM is a really common cause of system instability, including those blue screens.
So yeah, those are some really valuable tools to have in your arsenal.
They are, for sure.
The article also mentions memory dump analysis.
Ooh, now we're getting into the more advanced stuff.
Right, it's like doing a post-mortem on your system after it crashes.
Exactly. You can actually look at the contents of memory, figure out what drivers and processes were running, even pinpoint the exact instruction that caused the crash.
It's amazing what you can find out from a memory dump.
It really is. The article even links to another guide on memory dump analysis if you're interested in learning more about it.
Very cool. So, the article's about blue screens, but the bigger message here is about being proactive with system maintenance.
Absolutely. A lot of blue screens can be prevented by just keeping your systems healthy.
Right, making sure you install those updates, keeping an eye on your system resources, checking for those driver conflicts.
Yep, it's all about staying ahead of the game.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to circle back to something we talked about earlier. The importance of maintaining a strong security posture, especially during the holidays.
Right, it's easy to let things slide a bit when you're in holiday mode.
It is, but it's important to remember that attackers don't take holidays.
That's for sure. They're always looking for an opening.
And it's not just about protecting ourselves, right? It's about protecting our families, our colleagues, our organizations.
Exactly. So as we enjoy the holidays, let's all make sure to stay vigilant, keep our systems patched, and just be aware of the risks.
Well said. Stay tuned. And we're back for our final segment. We've been talking all about the latest PortalFuse Weekly Report. Everything from those Chromium vulnerabilities to blue screen troubleshooting. Now let's take some questions from our listeners.
Yeah, always good to hear what's on people's minds.
Absolutely. First question comes from James. He asks, software's getting more complex all the time. New vulnerabilities are popping up constantly. How can system admins even keep up?
That's a great question, James. And you're right, the threat landscape is changing so fast. But there are some things we can do to stay ahead of the curve. The most important thing is to be proactive.
So not just reacting to problems as they come up, but trying to anticipate them.
Exactly. That means staying informed about the latest threats, patching your systems regularly, and implementing those security best practices.
So resources like the PortalFuse Weekly Report, those are really valuable, right?
Definitely. Staying informed is key. It's like knowledge is your best defense.
I like that. Okay, our next question comes from Lisa. She asks, what are some practical things we can do to minimize blue screen errors, especially on those really critical systems?
Good question, Lisa. Blue screens can be a real headache, but most of the time they're caused by something you can fix. One of the most important things is to keep those Windows updates installed, especially on your critical systems.
Yeah, those updates often include patches for known vulnerabilities and bug fixes.
Right. And another thing you can do is manage your drivers carefully, especially if you're running specialized hardware or software.
Drivers can definitely cause conflicts.
Yep, so making sure they're up to date and compatible is really important.
Great advice. Okay, we have time for one more question. This one's from Mark. He asks, going into the new year, what's one piece of advice you would give to other system admins to improve their security?
Good question, Mark. If I had to pick just one thing, I'd say embrace the principle of least privilege.
Least privilege meaning?
Basically, only give users and applications the access they absolutely need.
Ah, okay. So if they don't need it, they don't get it.
Exactly. By limiting access and permissions, you're making it much harder for an attacker to do any real damage, even if they manage to get into a system.
Makes sense. It's all about minimizing that attack surface.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Well, that about wraps up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks again to our expert for sharing all his knowledge with us.
Happy to do it.
And to all our listeners, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. And remember, stay vigilant, keep your system secure, and we'll see you in the new year.
Happy holidays, everyone.